Hey guys, Chase with Sherpa Equipment Company. Today we're going to be installing our Rammstein rack on this 2008 Porsche Cayenne. This rack is compatible with the 2003 to 2010 Porsche Cayenne as well as the Volkswagen Touareg. It's going to be your first gen in both of those vehicles. So we'll jump right into it and go over what we have in the package. To start things off, we're going to have your wind fairing. You're going to have two side plates, a stack of crossbars. You're going to have your middle and rear mounting feet. And then we're going to have our front adjustable feet. You'll also have 4 anchor plates. These are going to be sliding in the existing roof track on the vehicle. And then you're going to have a big pile of hardware. I like to separate all the hardware out at the beginning. Just makes it a little bit easier going through the install. Generally, the first step in an install video is going to be actually uninstallation of the factory rack. This truck, however, does not have one of those. So we will be putting a link in the bio when we get a vehicle with the factory rack to show how to remove that the correct way. But otherwise, if we're skipping that, we're going to go right into the install. And that's just going to look like setting a bunch of this stuff aside for right now. We're not going to need the side plates. We're going to take 3 crossbars and keep these over here. And then the rest of them we can put off to the side for now. So what we're going to be doing right now is setting up our crossbars with our mounting feet. To set up the first mounting feet, we don't actually need crossbars just yet. We're going to be taking our Rammstein adjustable front feet. And to do this, you're going to have 4 carriage bolts. This carriage bolt goes through the front, no washer or anything, so the rounded face is facing out at you. And then the adjustable top will go behind the bottom portion of the mounting foot. And you should have something that looks like that. We're going to be using 2 1/4-inch washers on the back side of both of these bolts. And then 2 nylocks, and we're just going to get them started here for the time being. And you'll be left with a adjustable mounting foot that moves up and down for height adjustability on the front. When setting these up, I also like to tighten these nylocks down basically all the way, and then back them off just 1 turn. This will allow it to still move up and down. It's going to make the installation when it's actually up on the truck much, much easier. So I like to keep these both loose, but a lot tighter than they are with the nut just sitting at the end of the bolt. So now that we got those installed, we're going to go ahead and be mounting them to the crossbars. To mount these mounts to the crossbar, we're going to take 2 T-nuts for each mount and simply drop your T-nut into the track on the crossbar. It doesn't matter which side or which orientation the T-nut is, as long as the flat face is facing up towards you. It's also not critical where we're putting these mounts at this step because these will be sliding back and forth. So you're going to want to make sure your middle will go with your middle, obviously. You're going to take some of your hardware, your short 1/4 bolts, and simply thread them into the T-nut below. You don't want to go tight on these yet because we are going to be sliding these back and forth, so we want those to be able to move up until later when we're ready to center them up and tighten them down. Now we're going to do the rear mounts the same way. One thing to note on the rear mounts is there's a small notch in the bottom corner. What that is there for is to show you the orientation of this mount up on the vehicle. So this notch on your mount is going to face the front of the vehicle. So keep that in mind when putting it up on the truck. If it's facing the back of the vehicle, the crossbar is not going to sit flat. The middle mounts are not side specific, so those ones do not matter, but the rears, make sure that front notch faces the front of the vehicle. Rear and middle crossbars are set up, ready to go up on the truck. Notice the mounting surface is towards the edge of the crossbar, not facing inward. So we're going to set those aside for now, and we're going to also now set up our adjustable crossbar. We're going to be doing this the same way, same concept as mounting the other mounts, but this time your adjustable mount feet are going to go down same way, rubber pad towards the end of the crossbar. So now we're at the top of the vehicle. We're going to be putting our anchor plates into the roof. To do this, really simple, drop them into your little wide opening here. One of them is going to slide forward, the other one's going to slide back. We are going to be adjusting those later, so it's not super critical where they go now. But we'll throw those on this side and these on that side and get the crossbars up here. All of our mounting feet are assembled to the crossbars. Now we're going to take them up and put them on the roof. So to do this, I'm going to start in the middle. I'm going to take 4 M8 bolts and 4 M8 washers. Put those on there. And then take these and grab my middle crossbar with my middle mounts and head up to the roof. The centering of this crossbar is not very important at this point. And we're remembering that this side, or this mount, is not side specific, so it does not matter which direction it goes, as long as that mounting surface is facing the outside of the vehicle. So we'll get this over, and then take our M8 bolts and thread them into the anchor plate below. Sometimes, depending on the depth of your roof track, your bolt might not grab right away. So what I like to do is lift up with both of my pinkies just a little bit on the anchor plate. That brings the plate up, and then you can get the threads started. Once you get one, the other one should thread in no problem. We got the middle mounts up. Notice that we keep the bolts loose, so that way the crossbar can slide back and forth. And now we're going to do the same thing with the rear. Again, keeping in mind that notch on the front edge of the mount is going to face the front of the vehicle. And we're just going to get this one mounted up just like we did the last. Next step, now that we got the crossbars loosely attached to the roof here, we're going to be centering up the crossbar on the roof so the side plates, or the rack, doesn't sit farther to one side than it does on the other. These trucks with the roof track system that they have make it a little bit awkward because you get a little bit of side-to-side play. So what I like to do when doing this is pull the mount all the way out to the outside edge of the track, and that's where I'm going to be measuring from. I'll do the same thing on that side, and what we do to square these up is take a tape measure from the inside face of your mounting foot to the outside edge of the crossbar. For example, right now I'm sitting at 6.5 inches from here to here, and then go to that side, double check, and then just make those numbers match up. Again, trying to keep your mounts either all the way to the outside or all the way to the inside to ensure that you get a nice fitting rack. After going back and forth, we got these all centered up here. Good starting spot for you guys watching, about 7 3/8 on this middle mount up here, and then about 7.5 on the rear. Definitely double check, don't go off my measurements. Roof stiffer, and you want to make sure you get yours centered to your vehicle. But good place to start. Once those are both up, we're going to be able to still slide these around, and we will be lining these up now with the side plate and getting the side plate mounted up to it. So now that the crossbars are up on the roof, the crossbars are centered, and the anchor plates are loosely attached to the mounting feet that can still slide back and forth, we're going to throw a side plate up. So I'm just going to grab one of our side plates, and we're going to be mounting the rear mounting crossbar in this small slot back here in front of the mountain, and then the middle mount is going to be going in this long slot, but right after the short slot right here. So this is going to give us the adjustability to go up and down depending on the curve of the roof, which will lower the front or raise the front, and then the adjustable will be all the way at the front. So to put this up there, it's a little bit awkward with one person, but doable. I'm going to grab 2 socket buttons with the 1/4-inch washers on them. And just going to be very careful here, putting it up. Kind of a balancing game. Get the socket button started into the rear mount crossbar. Once I got a few turns on that, I will do the same on this middle mount crossbar. And once that's kind of supported by those bolts, I can kind of step back, and I can already see that the front is sitting too high here, so I'm going to be moving that middle crossbar with the mounts on it forward, which will kind of drop the front of the rack down as the track falls away from the rack. So we'll get 2 more bolts up in there just to make sure that it's sturdy, and then kind of start moving forward back. Also get the other side plate up on the other side, make our final adjustments before we start tightening things down. So both side plates are up, attached to our crossbars. What I did on the rear is I like to center up the rear mounting foot with that rear crossbar in the center of this slot. Just kind of looks cleaner. And then I'm going to be tightening that down before anything else. And then this crossbar here, we can slide forward or back depending on the height of the front of the rack. This one looks like it might go forward another 1/2 inch or so and drop that front down a little bit more just to get your desired fitment. But to ensure that this one doesn't fall away on that back slope, we're going to be tightening these roof bolts down first. These two are tight already, so we'll go ahead, tighten the roof bolts down, and then start adjusting that middle mount. Tighten these down. We're going to take a 13mm socket on an extension. You can use a wrench. We're just going to snug these, make sure we aren't cross-threaded into that anchor plate down below, and give it a good snug on both bolts. Just for kind of to show you guys how much this can make a difference, sliding it back and forth. This is with the crossbar set pretty much farthest back. I can get almost my whole finger up under the front of the rack, but then as you slide it forward, the rack drops. Now I can barely get a finger under there. So this is a good spot where you can kind of take a step back, check out the spline, see how it matches the curve of the vehicle. Keep in mind that this car tapers in near the back quite a bit. That's why you're going to see it looks like it's really low back here and high up front. However, that's not actually the case. The truck body is actually just falling away from the rack itself. So we're going to go ahead and step back, do a couple adjustments, get this one positioned where we like it, and once we're happy with the positioning, tighten those bolts down into the roof and tighten the socket buttons into the side plate. We ended up actually sliding that mounting crossbar all the way forward. It fit really nicely with the curve of the roof, so that's where it's going to be sitting on this vehicle. Good place to start on yours, but again, just keep in mind, this is a pretty long range of years that they made this truck, so roofs might differ slightly, but should be able to find something that suits your needs. So now that that's all tightened and squared away, the roof bolts are tightened down into those anchor plates. We're going to throw up the rest of the crossbars and our adjustable crossbar. We're going to pull one aside for the fairing. That one will be used later. And then the rest of the crossbars can kind of go up in your desired orientation, depending on if you're putting a 10 up there, boxes, max tracks, whatever. The only one that you're going to want to save is your adjustable crossbar is going to go up here in the front slot, preferably probably all the way forward. The reason for that is you can see there's about a 1 to 2 foot gap between your last solid mount, so we added an adjustable mount to keep that vibration down and make it a really sturdy rack for a good amount of weight. So we'll go ahead and throw those crossbars up, and then we'll explain the adjustable. So the remaining crossbars are now up in the rack. We got all of them tightened down in the orientation that worked for us. So now we're going to be doing the adjustable mounting feet. Just going to install this like any other crossbar up in the front slot. And we're going to set it up all the way at the front. That way we can get it as tight as we can. And then we can slide it back once the front adjustables are tightened down. That'll kind of push it up the roof and just make sure everything's really nice and tight. So I'm going to bring a rubber block up, a microfiber, 7/16, my 4 socket buttons and washers, and my Allen wrench. And we'll go get this thing mounted. I have the crossbar set up all the way forward. This rack is pretty tight fitting as it is, so what I do is I pull up on the bottom of the side plate here, shove this rubber block under there, and that kind of just lifts everything up, keeps it in its highest position. And then all we do here, kind of bring it to the outside, push down on it, make sure it's completely contacting the roof. Take my 7/16, tighten the mount up into the crossbar for starters. And once we have it where it's going to sit, work my adjustable mounting foot down. Once I'm happy with that, 7/16 again, backside of the carriage bolt, and we will just tighten that down, making it nice and snug. Do that on both sides. And once we're happy with it there, go ahead and pull that rubber out, and that thing is completely solid. All right, so now we're on to our final step. Going to be getting this fairing onto the crossbar. Going to take our remaining 6 T-nuts, flat side up, facing you, and drop those in line with the 6 holes that are on the fairing. And once you have all 6 of these T-nuts in place, you're going to take the fairing, set it up on the crossbar, take your short socket buttons with their 1/4-inch washers, and just get those started in each one of the T-nuts below. You should, if you leave it loose, be able to slide this back and forth to find the other ones. And once all 6 of those bolts are started, we're going to flush up the ends of the fairing with the ends of the crossbar. to make it sit nice and centered on that. And I just like to hold one hand at the end, kind of push it, feel both the edges. Once you're satisfied with it being centered and flushed up, go ahead and tighten these down. So we're just going to get the fairing installed just like any other crossbar. We're going to flush up the edge, the bottom of the edge trim to the bottom of the side plate where it kind of comes to a point. And that should leave us with about a 1/4 inch gap off the roof. Opposed to a lot of other different racks, we really like having a gap between the rack and the roof. That way you avoid damage to your paint, don't have dents, don't cut through your clear coat. So once you get that gap there that you like, looks nice, about a 1/4 inch, you can go ahead, tighten it down. So that is the install of the Rammstein. Pretty straightforward. It's a good idea once you kind of finish everything, get the fairing up there, to go back through, go over all of the hardware on the rack one more time before you hit the road. If you take it out, drive it for a few days, a couple 100 miles, whatever, go back through, check that hardware one more time. We've seen people take them right on trails right away, and some of that hardware might back out a day in, but after sitting in for a few days, driving it for a little while, it will lock in there and you should never have to worry about it again. If you run into any issues or weird things during the install, please don't hesitate to reach out. A member of our team will be happy to help. You can give us a call or shoot us an email. Other than that, the rack looks great on the truck, and thanks for watching.